Welcome to our video series on using prerequisite tree thinking tools for business. In this video, we'll explore the transformation logic tree software. Okay, when you open up Transformation Logic Tree, here's how it looks in the first instance. And the workspace does take a little time to get used to because it's quite different from many other types of software. It is unique in that it's specifically designed for the TOC thinking processes. So over on the left, you have your toolbox, and you can close it if you wish just by clicking there, or you can reduce its width with that line. And here are a bunch of items you can add to your worksheet. And a lot of these you really need to be familiar with what they are to be able to use them, because some of these terms are rather cryptic, such as mag operator, I/O, def number, I guess, and DEF and the hash or pound symbol, curved line, that's pretty self-explanatory, and you can just scroll down and try these out. And actually, I'll be talking you through the software as we actually create a demo, rather than talking you through the software first and then actually using it. I'll be showing it to you as we actually go through it. Okay, this area here is called a worksheet, and I'll be using four main objects actually. Four main objects from the toolbox. I'll be using a strategic objective, and if you just click on that and then click anywhere in the worksheet, a pop-up comes up, Edit Entity. And for example, let's say this is my strategic objective. And it appears. And the strategic objective, those items, as they appear on the worksheet, are defined by the wavy lines on the top and bottom. And you can click and drag it around. You can stretch it out using the green dots around the border. Okay, we're also going to be looking at obstacle. Click anywhere, and OK, this is an obstacle. OK that, and you can do the same. You can move it around, you can resize it, and obstacles look quite different. They're six-sided objects, and they have a gray background. Also, we're interested in I/O, intermediate objective. Okay, click anywhere. And this is an intermediate objective. Okay, that, and that's how those look. And lastly, segment lines to connect the items up. That's a basic overview, and we'll start going through the process in a lot more detail in a further video. The first thing you need to do is decide upon your strategic objective. Where is it that you want to go? Where is it that you want to be? For example, and actually it may be helpful to phrase it in the present tense. For example, our business makes $1 million a year in sales. That's your goal. It may not be the case now, but you can phrase it in the now, and that becomes your strategic objective. And then you list all the obstacles that exist right now. Not the obstacles that you're potentially worried about happening, but the things that exist right now. You add them to your prerequisite tree as obstacles. You can have as many obstacles as you like, and for each obstacle, you describe in the present tense the situation that would mean that this obstacle would no longer be a problem. So in a way, this is the solution to the obstacle. This intermediate objective is the solution to this obstacle, but described in a way as if it already exists. Then once you've done that, you reorder your intermediate objectives so that they make sense in a logical sequence. And some of the intermediate objectives can happen concurrently. They can happen at the same time, as you'll see as we go through this process. For example, if we go to the one segment line, we can match this obstacle with this intermediate objective. Okay, double-click on the line, and we can change it from an arrowhead to no arrowhead. And actually, let's select the line and make sure it's locked to the two items. Okay, and double-click the line, and let's make it dotted. So those two are related to each other. This intermediate objective overcomes this obstacle. Then lastly, a one-segment line, and it's from the final intermediate objective, it goes to the strategic objective. So you're going to have a bunch of obstacles and a bunch of intermediate objectives overcoming those obstacles. And then you reorder your intermediate objectives until step by step you get to your strategic objective. This will become a lot clearer as we go through this in a step-by-step example in the next video. But just before we do that, a point worth mentioning. In the Diagrams menu, if we go to Workspace Settings, first you can choose your paper settings, the size of the paper you're printing out on. You have a number of options there. By default, it's set at letter. You can set a custom width and height if you wish, but generally it's not suggested if you're printing onto standard paper. Show page boundaries, generally a good idea. It's helpful to know where the page boundaries are on the workspace, but you can always get rid of that if you wish, and then you can decide on margins. You can choose rulers. I generally don't bother because I don't really use them, so we can get rid of the horizontal and vertical rulers on the workspace. Then, workspace dimensions. The workspace can be bigger than the page, and what I've done in the past, if I have a workspace that's larger than the page, then what I print out are multiple pages, and then you just have to tape those pages together into one larger worksheet. So let's just say, for example's sake, width of 20 inches and height of 20 inches. And that comes to 3.08 pages when printed out. 3.08 pages wide when printed out and 2.22 pages long when printed out. And you can choose whether you have grid lines, these grid lines on the worksheet. We can leave them for now, but they're easy to get rid of if we choose. And actually through this screen, through this Preferences screen, you can specify different options, different settings. You can go to Default Workspace Settings and specify your default workspace settings: paper, rulers, workspace dimensions, and grid lines. So then those settings would apply automatically to future worksheets. And general preferences display units in inches, centimeters, or millimeters. And okay, advanced rendering, smooth lines, curves, and fonts. Okay, leave that for now. Automatically select Point Tool after dropping any item from the toolbox. So basically, after creating any intermediate objective, you go back immediately to the pointer tool. I don't like this tool, so I'm going to disable it. If I want the pointer tool, I'd prefer to go back to it manually, so let's disable it for now. Edit Entity dialog box. With any item on the page, do you show the story text or hide it by default? Let's hide it by default, and we'll cover stories later in these videos. Then Presentation Mode, Auto Hide Toolbox, Auto Hide Document Explorer, when we're doing a presentation. But that's fine, so let's OK that. So now the workspace is a lot bigger, and I'll need to scroll over, and you'll see the page divider. There it is. And there's another one. and the next one. Just before and we get a very small percentage of the fourth page. And then if we go vertically, page break, and page break. Actually, that's just an example, and we aren't going to create a diagram that big. So let's quickly go diagram. Excuse me, close that. Go Diagrams, Workspace, Workspace Settings, and let's change the Workspace 1, which we're currently in. Let's just change it back to default. So let's change the margins to 0.5 inches, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, and let's say the width is 7, and the height is, let's try 10. There we go. So it all fits on one page. Let's OK that. OK, so click, hold, and drag to make multiple selections. Delete. We can edit, delete, and I'm going to start from scratch with this worksheet, creating an actual prerequisite tree in the next video.